Good morning, my friends. Today we are learning in Rambam the laws of Teshuvah, the laws of repentance, chapter 8, third to last chapter. Over here in today's chapter, we're going to be discussing the specialty and the unfathomable greatness of the world to come. We all know, we all grew up and have the basic outline of the world to come, the Garden of Eden, where this is the place of reward. But today the Rambam is really going to clarify and tell us what it's all about. So the good that is hidden for the righteous is the life of the world to come. This is the life that is not accompanied by any death, and it's a good that is not accompanied by any evil. In other words, it is complete good. As it says in the verse, so that good will be granted to you and you will live long. And meaning that this is a place where there is only good and a place where there is only life. And this place, the world to come, is the reward for the righteous people who have done in this world all the good that they have done. And it is also a payback and a consequence of punishment for those who have sinned. Those people who were evil people in this world, they will not merit to come to the place of the world to come and have this glorious experience over there, as the Rambam is going to tell us. But rather, they are cut off and they are disconnected and not able to come to have this great reward. And this is what it says in the verse, that there are certain sins where the soul gets cut off. So it means that it's cut off from the world to come. And this world to come, when we're talking about this place, it's a spiritual world. It's obviously not a physical world. There is no body or physical forms, but rather it's only the souls themselves. It's only the souls. There is no body involved. And therefore, because there are no bodies, so therefore there is no eating, there is no drinking, and any other thing that our body is involved within this world, in this physical world. And things that take place with our body down here below don't take place with the soul. In other words, these things don't talk to the soul. They're not within the realm of what the soul is dealing with. For instance, sitting, standing, sleeping, death, happiness, joy, so on and so forth. As it says in the Talmud, that in the world to come, there is no eating, there is no drinking, there is no sexual intercourse, but rather the righteous tzaddikim, the righteous people, are sitting and they have crowns on their heads and they are enjoying the greatness of the Shekhinah of God's presence. So, in other words, as we understand from what it says in the Talmud, there is no eating and drinking over there. And the fact that it says that they are sitting and they have crowns on their heads obviously doesn't mean it physically, but rather it's the idea that they are sitting, it's comfortable, they don't have any, they're not working hard, so to speak, but rather it's a time of reward. And the crowns on their heads are the crowns of joy. And it obviously doesn't mean that when it says the crown of joy, the joy is on their head, that would obviously not mean a physical thing. A joy is not something which you can enclose on a person. You can't physically put joy in a person, but rather it means metaphorically. So similarly also in regards to the crown. And this is meaning that they're going to have such a strong and major experience of godliness in an unparalleled form that it is incomparable to this world when we're down here below. But rather when they come to the world to come, so that's when they have the greatest experience of godliness. When we're talking about over here about this term soul, it doesn't mean the soul that comes into the body and gets affected by the body and gives life to our body, but rather it is the source of it up in heaven, and it is the greatest. It is the form of the soul, and it is the knowledge which it comprehends according to its capability. And This is a form, so to speak, which we spoke about in the beginning of Rambam and the laws and the foundation of the Torah. And it's a type of a form that has life, which does not have a capability of death, because death is only something that happens to a body. And the soul that comes into the body now comes involved with the idea of life and death. But rather the source of the soul, which is in heaven, that doesn't have any connection to the idea of death. And this is the real reward for the righteous who have done good in this world. And this is what all the prophets have all desired and have spoken about in regards to the world to come. And this has various names or various terms in the way this world to come is described. In some places we find in Psalms it's called the mountain of God, it's called His holy place, the holy path, the courtyards of God, the pleasantness of God, the tents of God, the palace of God, the house of God, the gate of God. We have many different terms in where they are all talking about the same thing, which is the world to come. And this is their biggest retribution, where there is no greater retribution for a soul when it's going to be cut off and not merit to come to this world to come. And this is what it talks about, where you have obliteration, and similarly where it's all talking about the idea that those who have sinned in this world and will not merit to come into the world to come, this is talking about this greatest loss, the ultimate loss, when they will not be able to have this great experience of godliness. And maybe a person will think, well, what type of pleasure and greatness will there be in this world to come? And in our physical mind, we're trying to understand what it might mean, and we might feel that it's talking about eating some real good food or drinking some very good drinks, or maybe have sexual intercourse with some beautiful forms, and have beautiful clothing, and using gold and silver dishes. So that, the Rambam says, is foolish to think. And it's those who are flooded with lewdness think so, but rather sages and men of knowledge know that all these are in vain and empty things. But rather, the truth is that all these things, eating, drinking, etc., are all things that our body, our physical body, is using and is enjoying when we're down here in this world, so that we can have an enjoyment when we're down here below in this world. But when there is no body involved, and we're only talking about the essence of the soul in its spiritual form, so then all of these things don't take any place. They don't have any relevance. They don't have any value anymore. But rather, the real truth of the greatest of pleasures on a spiritual level is something which we cannot comprehend, because we are physical creations, and what we interact with is the pleasures of the physical world. But rather, the truth is that we have to know, and we have to believe it really, because we can't really understand it so much. But we have to believe that the great reward which is going to come in the world to come is something which is way beyond the pleasure that we can fathom down here in this world. And we find in Psalms that King David writes, and how much he desired and wanted to come to this world to come. He says, "Had I not believed that I would see the goodness of God in the land of the living," where he's talking about the land of the living is a place where there is only life. And again, as we said, this is something which is unfathomable. It's something which we cannot understand. And when we're talking about even the coming of the days of Mashiach, the Messianic era, when we will be still within a soul and a body down here in this world, so even that is not comparable to the greatness of what is going to come in the world to come. And in the world to come over there, it's going to be in a time where, as it says in Isaiah, that no eye has ever seen, O God, except for you. what you will do for those who wait for you. In other words, those who serve God, the goodness that awaits for these for them is only God Himself can perceive this. And so much so that even the prophets, throughout their prophecies, have only prophesied about the time of the Messianic era when we will still be souls within a body. But in the time when it's going to be beyond that, when it's going to be only souls without a body, and as we explained before, that this is the highest and the greatest level, so even in that, about that era, the prophets have never prophesied about it, in order not to minimize and maybe make it smaller in their verbal words of explaining how it might be. They might make it portray it less than what it actually is. And the fact that it's called the world to come is not that this world doesn't exist yet, but rather this world already exists and it's there. And it's called the world to come because it's the world that comes after our life down in this world, and when we are found with a body and a soul, and the world to come is going to be a world which is only the soul, and that is the highest level that we can come to. And that is the reward for those who have done good in this world. That is the chapter for today in Rambam, my friends. Chapter 8 in the laws of Teshuvah is a very fundamental chapter. And the truth is that I should mention that although the Rambam does speak about over here about the world to come as being a place where there is no body involved and it's only a soul, I will tell you that there is another great sage called the Ramban. So this is the Rambam, Maimonides. So there's the Ramban called Nachmanides, which was another great rabbi who lived in a similar time period as the Rambam. And he writes that, and he argues on the Rambam, and he says that actually the world to come, when we're talking about the ultimate reward and the place of the greatest reward, is going to be a place where there will be bodies. And the bodies will be such a great level of bodies is that they're going to live off spiritual life. So much so that the body is going to be so great. It's going to be so spiritual. A physical body, but it's going to be so spiritual that it's going to be giving life to the soul. So this is a whole nother discussion for itself, but I just wanted to bring it up just so that you have another picture and understanding in regards to this great reward that we're talking about. So the Rambam says that it's going to be a world without bodies, and the Ramban argues and says that it's going to be a world that does have bodies, and over there we will have the greatest pleasure and reward, obviously on a spiritual level. But that's it for today. We will continue tomorrow, God willing, with the next chapter, and then after that we will come to the last chapter and complete the entire the book of Rambam, the book of knowledge, the book of Mada, and we will then move on to the next book. But stay tuned. All the best.